review of land values and regional tourism.
Okay, so it's 9:03. I'd just like to begin the meeting by acknowledging that we are meeting today on the traditional lands of the land of traditional owners of this country, the Gumbaynggirr people. Very strong, knowledgeable and resilient people who walk this country for many, many thousands of years. And I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and future. Item number 2, apologies. We do have an apology for Councillor Clifton. So I need to move to accept that apology. Councillor Jenkins, seconder. Councillor Harrison. All those in favour? Item 3, declaration of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest. I have nil. Item 4, that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 29th of January 2020 be confirmed. Councillor Fenton, seconded. Councillor Carter.
Thank you.
All those in favour? Item 5, is there any matters arising from those minutes? Okay. Item 6, public access presentations, I have nil. Item 7, mayoral minute, I have nil. Item 8.1, I have a notice of motion for the alternative group Dorio Coffs Harbour from Councillor Desmay Harrison. So we've got a move, I've got a second, with Councillor Jenkins.
Sorry.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, was you going to ask
Have you got a
questions on
question?
that?
Yeah, I'll do it after the that's fine.
Through this, Mayor,
Okay,
we
so
are
I'll
fixing the screens, councillors. Excuse me.
we want to stop until that's done.
What you're missing is, unless you've got a photograph on the screen on your laptop anyway, that's to just listen to the minutes.
Moves Councillor Harrison. Second up is Councillor Jenkins. Have you got that? Have we got that sorted yet, councillors? No?
Right. Yes, it's up. Thank you.
Okay. So I will open it up for questions before I get Councillor Harrison to move the motion. Okay, so I've got Councillor Jenkins.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question and a possible amendment as well. My question is, I understand that this particular road is MR 120, I think it's called.
That's correct.
Yes, so I just would like some clarification on council's responsibility in relation to that particular road.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So council's responsibility as a regional road for MR 120 is for the first section, or the sealed section of Columba Road. And that's through the regional roads through RMX. And the second section out to the boundary with Coffs Harbour Council LGA is just a rural road classification, belongs to our council's responsibility. That's the unsealed 4-5 corner section.
Okay. Further to that then, would the money that we have been provided by the government, 1.3 million, whatever it was, would this particular activity as proposed in this motion be something that might be funded by that funding stream appropriately?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor, are you referring to the recovery money?
Yes.
Yeah. We would have to look at the guidelines for that. And in the context also of what it would cost, obviously, to fix, for want of a better word, that road, which is a reason do some research basically, I'm not sure that $1.3 million, even if you spent the whole lot of it, would go anywhere near it.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I mean, generally on a road of that classification, a 500 metre segment of that road, you'd be talking about anywhere from $250 to $1,000 to $500,000 for the rehabilitation or an upgrade.
I'm not talking about actually funding the activity, but because the motion only refers to looking at options.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
funding the study or whatever to do the options.
Potentially, yeah, utilise
Thank you.
some money.
I thought you were rebuilding the 1.3.
Because it's, as has been pointed out by Councillor Harrison in the motion, and as we all know, when Waterfall Way is closed, that is the only viable alternative route from the plateau and further inland areas to the coast. And the Waterfall Way is closed for a variety of reasons over time, one of which is bushfire. So it would be appropriate that the bushfire recovery money could be utilised for this purpose.
Can I say something? We have advocated quite, through you, Mr. Mayor, we've advocated in the past quite strongly around alternative routes, and we would certainly do that to the state government around this issue as well. Because whilst the classification and the ownership of the road is what it is also an alternative route, as you point out. So that would be canvassed in this report.
So I was wondering whether the motion itself could be reworded or have a little bit extra included to have the funding of the option study covered by the recovery money.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a report that is going to come to the March meeting of the council. A convention in local government is not to bind a council in its resolution in the matter, particularly in relation to money by a previous resolution. But we would look at that in the report that comes to the council in March.
Okay, I'll leave it there then.
I've got a further question for the acting deputy general manager. Right, around, so that road in terms of, if it was going to be used for an alternate route, I'm imagining that's going to include truck traffic. How much of an upgrade to that existing road? And then obviously you have to completely seal the untarred section. So it's going to be quite a big job, isn't it? And then you would have to then have an agreement from Coffs Harbour Council for them to finish their section as well. So it's quite a complex. And it would certainly have to be, in my mind, something that the state government makes a decision to support. And it looks like it would be, quite a large body of works, I'm thinking. Could that be correct?
Absolutely, for that, through you, Mr. Mayor, for that scale of a project, and given the parties interested, you're spanning 2 shires, the length of the road and the condition of the road we're talking about upgrading, and as you mentioned, traffic it's going to take, it'll be a very significant project.
And that's obviously what this will sort of bring out. Yeah, okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what that might determine is, based on the economy that you can provide, what type of vehicles and what sort of an alternative route you could ride, and not pay for all vehicles.
There could be a restriction. Yeah. Okay, one more question.
Sorry, just in furtherance of that, I understand that there is actually a second road that goes from Meagan area down to near Yulong, which is actually a forestry road. Is there an option there to, either through the state government or with forestry, have that road maintained as in a better condition? Because I understand it is in a better condition than the MR120 anyway.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware of this specific road, still taking my secrets with the LGA myself, but it would definitely be something that we could consider and look up through an option study if that was to be progressed.
Okay, so if there's no further questions, I will ask Councillor Harrison to introduce the motion.
I'm happy to introduce this motion because it's something that's been on my agenda for at least 15 years, even before I came into council. It became obvious over the years of the isolation that's caused when that mountain goes out. And even the indications at the moment are many landslips happening on that mountain, and there haven't been big ones, that we have to allow for the fact that there could be more slips, major slips. In my time of living up there, we've had one incident where the mountain road was closed for 2 weeks because of a landslip. But we're now having to factor in many other things like flooding. Well, we realise that when the waterfalls go over, they're generally only there for a short period of time, but you have to allow for the time it takes to clean up the road after. A fire goes through, it could be closed for a certain period of time because they have to go through and check all the trees, make sure that they're safe. But the biggest threat to us, in my mind, is the massive rainfall we get in that area and the landslips. When the road goes out, it affects the whole Shire, because we have many people who drive backwards and forwards, either from the coast to Dorrigo or from the Dorrigo to Bellingen and the coast to go to work. And many a time that has created a problem of people losing a day or two's wages because of it. And then the other really big one is it affects the whole economy of the whole Shire and further afield. But we've now got some really good industries going on the plateau, where we've got two big farmers who are growing vegetables very successfully, and they have to get their semi-trailers out every day to deliver to meet their contracts. We also have a potato farmer up there at the moment who he picks today, he travels to Brisbane overnight, and the Smith's chips from Dorrigo potatoes are made the next day. If he can't deliver on that, that's another loss to the economy. The big one that also really affects me emotionally is I know many people who travel from inland to the coast to have oncology and specialist treatments that they can't get inland. And we know with oncology that if you miss a day, your whole program's thrown out. So I'm not saying which route to be used. We do have two routes there. When it was investigated before, it was found that the route that does go through forestry land was the best route because it's wider, it's more stable, and that was going to cost $20 million just to do that section then. I believe on both roads, council only own or maintain about 6 kilometres of dirt road before you get to those boundaries. So there's only that 6 kilometres that, or whatever it is, a small distance that concerns us. In my mind, it doesn't matter which road, when it's investigated, is done, as long as we can get an upgrade to the road that would manage to get our vehicles through, our milk trucks through. When we were isolated before, they were throwing up to 20,000 litres of milk out a day because they couldn't get their milk through. And therefore, they lose a lot of money because of that. And I could go on for hours, but I don't really want to. But it's a really important thing. And the motion is, I'm not suggesting which road, and I understand that we will never have a flood-free road. We've got to understand that. But our floods are the highest rising and falling floods on the eastern seaboard. So you're only isolated for a day or maybe a little bit more. So what I'm asking is that investigations start from council level, where possible, to get the ball rolling. But I really feel in the end, a report will come back to council, but I feel that both the state and federal government have to step up to the mark and help with this one, because it's so isolating, and we're even isolated even more now because the road to Grafton is not passable and they can't give a date on when it will be open because there's 3 bridges that have to be replaced. So as I said before, I'm really pleased to put this motion up and hope that everybody supports it.
Thank you, councillor. Is there any opposition? Is there any other speakers for? Councillor Jenkins?
Only to endorse councillor Harrison's comments and fully support the motion.
Okay, so I'll put it, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Item 10.1, which is the ratification of changes to section 355 management committee membership. Have you got a question? Or-
Can I note an error?
Yes, Lucas?
Yes.
Yes.
So I am looking for a mover. Councillor Fenton. Seconder. Councillor Carter. You need to speak to this, Councillor Fenton.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
If there is no opposition, I'll put it. All those in favour? Item 12.1 is the Environmental Levy Community Fund. We have had a workshop on this, councillors, and it has stayed the same as when we spoke about them. So I am looking for a mover. Councillor Fenton. Seconder, Councillor Jenkins. Would you like to speak to this, Councillor Fenton?
Briefly through you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, we've had an oversubscription to our environment levy, and I think every year the success and the variety of really important local projects proves that the council of the day did the right thing establishing the environment levy, for not just the work that council does with that money, but also what the community does. And I know those sometimes small amounts of money do a great deal in largely volunteer organisations. So another batch of exciting looking projects.
Okay, is there any opposition? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour? Item 12.2, the review of council herbicide use. And I am looking for, I'm going to move in a second, and then I can open it up for questions if there isn't. So I've got mover, councillor Wright Turner. And second, councillor Benson. And I will open it up for questions if there is any. Councillor Harrison?
Just a quick question on, thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We were anticipating allocating a budget of $50,000 for the environmental levy, which is fine. Does that mean we'll be employing a consultancy firm?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, a specialist in this area.
Yeah.
It's certainly something that's outside the scope of any of my staff.
Thank you.
Councillor Benson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I had a similar question, but does that involve are you envisaging the $50,000 relating to desktop type activity, or is that has an on-ground component, or what do you imagine that looks like? And that would come back to us before it goes ahead as a project anyway, wouldn't it?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. It was to look at, there's very brief scope within this report, and it was spoken about at the workshop. It is supposed to be all-encompassing, so mostly desktop study and looking at the things that council currently does, and of course we have a number of strategies that will feed into this, and hopefully, and I believe that there is scope within this money to actually do small-scale trials and look at what other councils are doing a little bit more in depth than what I did, to see if this was worth doing or not.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll just add on page, it's my page 22, at the bottom of that, on item 12.2, you'll see there the suggested scope for review. It also includes, as in addition to what Alex has said, stakeholder workshops, mapping, the current, future control methods and locations, demonstrations of products and scenarios, so some on-ground stuff, community engagement, and potentially some longer-term trials of alternatives, at least commencing those. Cost comparisons pre and post trial, reviewing council policies and procedures if necessary, and then further stakeholder engagement toward the end of that consultancy project. We're expecting it would be a couple of days a week, so it's not one person coming in for 2 or 3 months. We expect it would be one person coming in for 2 days a week for a longer period of time, so we could really do the work properly.
Councillor Lifeson.
Through you, Mr Mayor, could I just ask what the impact on the funds that are available through the environment levy will be? Because that is I recognise that's an important source of, community environmental activities.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think you're asking how it would, taking 50,000 from what I anticipate to be around about a $250,000 to $260,000 levy is. Obviously it's a fairly large impact, and it will mean that we will have to look at what other projects we do or don't do. So so the impact, it is literally as it is, it's 50,000 gone from that. So.
But clarifying that on what you say with what the budget is, it's not the major, it is a significant component, but there would still be significant funds left as well.
There will still be some significant funds, but as you'll recall from previous years, and in fact the last item, we do put around about 30,000, we being council approves, around about 30,000 for the community levy fund. Usually we put some towards sustainability type projects, which I anticipate we'd want some to go towards climate emergency work. So it is a large amount of money, and it will mean that we do have to either move some projects or put them on hold. So it is a bit of a deliberation.
Yeah, good, thank you.
So Alex, further to that question, some of the works that are done are outside of weed control, are operational, where we're using plots. So some of that's being maintained parks and gardens, etc.
Mr Mayor, most of the work actually that council does is more operational work in terms of weed spraying and killing as such.
So, I mean, there's a couple of things that I'm sort of looking at that, and I think Councillor Whiteshane's point is quite obviously is a limited pool in terms of our money for environmental projects. But this lies with a couple of things. And then the other thing is the work health and safety issue around glyphosate now, which is becoming more and more obvious. And I'm sure most councils will be reviewing this because we're seeing a global movement that's sort of saying, glyphosate, it looks like it's a lot worse than what was originally thought and what we were told. So there's a big, there's a divide there between whether this is purely environmental. For me, this is environmental money, and I think there should be, some further scope about where that fits into the budget. The other question that I have is being on the former North Coast Weeds Board, there was real concern about the control of new weeds, and that Roundup is the only solution that they have at the moment for some of those weeds. But there's also a real concern that should be noted around this, which is the amount of money that we're getting to deal with the weed problem in our area. And so there's a couple of questions for me there. If that's going to take it out of that budget, how do you feel that we're going in terms of management of the weeds in the Shire? And we haven't got a weeds officer at the moment, have we? So,
Mr Mayor, we don't have a weeds officer, we have a weed inspector,
okay.
and the officer position is Carmen, who's on maternity leave, and we've had some difficulties filling and retaining in that position, unfortunately. She will be back, so she promises.
And so I noticed that there is a budget that's been given to us around weeds again. Is that going to cover what we need to do? Is that fairly within the department?
So that covers the WAP objectives. So it's quite a a strict grant program, if that makes sense. So some of them for high risk pathways and some for aerial work. So you have to basically meet those needs. So when it comes to doing anything outside of the scope of that money wouldn't really be relevant for that. So we're doing okay with that. We've been managing to keep on top of meeting those objectives. Yeah, and every now and then we do get an extra small grant for what you mentioned before, which is what's called new and emerging weeds. So tropical soda apple, particularly being a new one that everyone's having difficulty eradicating. So,
Because looking at the former, some of those former reports that we have done some trials, and that they were noted in the report. And what came out of those trials was in general that some of the other products weren't as good as managing. Sorry. I know some of the concerns that we have about this are the costs of the alternative, and I know that someone quoted sometimes 10 times higher, and also their effectiveness. And there's a concern that some of them might be as problematic as glyphosate. So there's a whole range of stuff that we need to get through in this stage to get a better understanding. And, you know, it certainly feels like this is a really, really difficult and complex problem for not only us, but a wider scope. And it probably should be something that we speak to other councils about and try and do a body of work together, I feel. You know, or maybe, you know, through the North Coast Weeds Board, that we need to certainly have a look at that as a larger problem, and maybe, you know, come together and do some projects together rather than us all trying to do the same study separately. So, I mean, that might be a way for us to, you know, if we do allocate this funding towards that, is that we then have another bit of a investigation in who we can work with together and see if we can get a combined effort rather than us just trying to do this on our own. So would you agree with that, is the question?
yes, Mr. Mayor, but that's also why I think it would be more appropriate to have a specialist, as the Deputy General Manager suggested, that came in for maybe 2 days a week over a longer term. Maybe they could coordinate that kind of work with other councils and share information.
Through Mr. Mayor, if you like, it's not part of the resolution, but we'll add to the scope, that draft scope that we've got anyway, looking at options to work regionally with other councils if they.
Is there any further questions? Yes, Councillor Carter.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The issue regarding Roundup are everywhere at the moment. They're up and down with the view that it's all harmful to humans. And that's what I get out of a lot of these meetings. But when you read the paper, coming out of the United States of Scientists, it says that it's quite safe for humans. So it sort of confuses the mind that, okay, if it's safe, why aren't we using it? But council's telling me it's not safe. Who do we make judgment on? Like, for me to make the proper decision, what information can I go by except for what council tells me? What I'm reading must be wrong. I don't know. It's just confusing.
Really, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to respond to that. I think the point isn't for us to decide whether it is or isn't harmful. There's bodies bigger than us and with more scientific resources to do that. But certainly there are many countries that have banned it based on the research, and the use of it based on the research. We currently use any product, but that product in particular, according to the directions from the manufacturer, which are deemed by the bodies that govern it as being safe. However, if there is a risk that we are putting on our staff because we're using it, I think the idea of this is really to just identify if there are alternatives out there, if they're going to be as effective in terms of the control methods and cost effective, and let the research continue to come back on what glyphosate's doing and whether it is or isn't harmful. So, there are many countries have banned it based on the research, other countries haven't.
So what we're actually doing is to rather be safe than sorry approach. Yeah.
And that's how I'd like to be with our staff and our community.
Okay.
Is there any further questions? Okay, Okay, so I would actually, I want to move an amendment, which is a point 3. So it's the same, but
Returning.
does that mean it's like?
You could ask, the two councillors who are the mover and seconder if they would be happy to add a point 3, or you could leave an amendment, and then we could debate the amendment, and then, so first question would be, are the two councillors happy?
Could we hear what the amendment is before we say yes?
So I think that the amendment point 3 should be that some of that investigation is the opportunity to work together with fellow council, neighbouring council. And I think we need to keep it regional, because obviously what we're experiencing is very different than what they're experiencing in terms of weeds. And we certainly are, you know, one of the best places for weeds to grow. We've got the rainfall, we've got the weather, so it's, you know, and that's always been a gripe of mine that we push, that we, you know, we need more money. So
I'll just guess.
the scope includes research around potential for council to work to both share information and outcomes.
The research bit's unnecessary. That the scope include the potential for councils to work.
The scope include the potential.
So, yeah, so take research around, out.
Don't go on mousing or something. Yeah. The potential.
So take the councils to work together in brackets.
Are you happy with that?
Can we keep it? You can have a bit more in that the scope include potential for councils to work together regionally around this issue. Because then it's not a sharing company with what comes out of that. Yeah?
And type of
Right.
watching.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, are you happy with that?
Well, yeah, that's good.
Yes,
And you're,
yes, we support that.
it's just a further point.
A point, and so the mover and seconder regions.
Okay, so Councillor Watson, would you like to speak to it?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I hadn't anticipated what I was throwing up for council when I first brought that question about the use of glyphosate. I'm sure it needed to be raised, but I hadn't anticipated it would, you know, require this depth of work. But I appreciate the staff looking at it really seriously and seeing that this is what's needed. It's a cost of action and a cost of inaction. And that's, Councillor Carter just put it very, very well. It's something that I think we have a responsibility as a council, you know, at this time with the emerging information. And I also agree with Councillor Carter, there is conflicting information there. But what's been happening in my read of it is the questions around glyphosate and the questions around a lot of the things that we do in the environment and the kinds of chemicals and things that we use. They're raising in their intensity, and the research that's there is going right down into the, you know, the biomes, the gut, you know, gut flora of bees and, you know, all the little aquatic creatures that in a sense we haven't really looked at in a big way before. So I think we have a real responsibility, and it's to the environment, which ultimately impacts human health, but there is a much more direct responsibility to our staff and to our community. So I can see it's a lot of money. I know that's a big thing for a small council to do, but I think we're on the right foot, and I think that you know, there is great potential that it could become something that we work with regionally, and that we, you know, we're able to make a difference. So I would really encourage my fellow councillors to support this. I think it's a really important opportunity for Bellingen Shire Council to step forward and step up to the mark, in a sense, on a really important issue.
Is there any opposition? Any more speakers for? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour?
Thank you.
Item 12.3 is the water status report, and we do have Craig Hellman here, Manager of Water and Wastewater. So I'll get a mover in a second, and then I'll open it up for questions. Move, Councillor Benson. Seconder, Councillor Harrison. Okay, and now I'll open it up for questions. Councillor Benson.
Through you, Mr Mayor, 2 questions, if I could. Both around South Urunga, the new water, or the new developed area, the reservoirs mentioned, are they're holding tanks, they're post-treatment, that's for delivery to homes, is it? That reference to 2 new reservoirs?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the 2 reservoirs down in South Urunga, one's potable water, which will just be fed from Raleigh Reservoir, which is existing. They'll just be to service the new subdivision. However, there is going to be a report coming to council in the next couple of months that we may expand that reservoir and supply the whole of Urunga to give greater pressure to the higher areas in Urunga. The second reservoir will be reuse water from the sewage upgrade. So all the new subdivisions we're paying for a purple pipe. So all new residential lots will have reuse water for toilets, washing and outdoor use.
So that treatment, that was my second question, was that treatment for that reuse, the purple pipe water, will happen at a different location to the treatment plant then?
It'll happen, through Mr Mayor, it'll happen at the Urunga sewage treatment plant. It's part of the upgrade.
Okay,
Yeah.
so all the water will come back there and be treated and sent out again for the reuse water?
The reuse water will come directly from the treatment plant. So instead of being discharged into the lagoon, it'll go through a treatment process and then be pumped up to the reservoirs.
Okay.
So could I just get some clarification on one of those questions? So when you speak about the reservoir, is that the reservoir that we see on the Waterfall Way? Or is it, that's a separate?
The Raleigh Reservoir one's going to feed them.
Yeah.
It's on Shortcut Road.
Yeah. This is a tank. What you're talking about with the reservoir is a tank, is it?
Yeah, it's just a tank. Yeah, sorry. Concrete tank.
I've got a couple of questions as well. One of the things I did note was that the real jump in usage around in all the town. It's quite, I mean, I looked at the, even when we put the water restrictions on, they were still sort of going up. And then when we took them, I think we took them off, even before we took them off, the water use went back up again. It was sort of quite a bit of a spike in water use, and then particularly when we went back to level 2, there was a, it was quite apparent that, it spiked back up, and particularly in some places more than others. I'm sort of wondering, there was the part of me that thinks that, after having that water shortage, that we as a community would go, wow, we better make sure that we continue to save water even though we've had rain. And I'm just wondering if there's any sort of insight into why that would spike so much. Is that people filling pools up? Or, I can't imagine that would take so much.
Through you, Mr Mayor, a lot of the consumption figures here, especially for like January, there's a big jump in Urunga, and a lot of it's due to tourists. Like there's always over Christmas, there's a big peak in Mileston and Urunga, not so much Bellingen, but other areas of tourists.
That makes sense.
We do have a leak in Urunga we can't find. We've been searching for it for 3 weeks, and we've got acoustic equipment in to try and locate it, and we're still having troubles locating it. Might be in a swamp somewhere.
Okay.
So we've got to hunt that down. So the February usage for Urunga is going to be really high until we can find this leak.
And the other question I had was around the state water sharing plan, and I know that there was workshops yesterday, I think.
In May.
Oh, they're coming up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through
So just some questions around what that is. I'm trying to get an understanding of that. Obviously, are council involved in that discussion? And my understanding is that that's around extraction from irrigators from the river. And it's separate to our controls in terms of what the pumps are or whatever. Is that right? Is that it's something that it's a state level decision that we don't really come into?
through you, Mr. Mayor, the water sharing plans, the Bellinger Valley water sharing plan, so it takes into account the Bellinger River and the Kalang. It's been around the previous one for about 8 years, and it's been well overdue for review. Like, it's actually legislation. So it takes into account how much water is available in the river for everyone's use. It's for like town water use, irrigation, environmental use, Indigenous use, and it allocates all that water to different sources. So it's reviewed all those allocations, and it's reviewed all the trigger points for like cease to pumps and limiting pumping, and all the stuff involving extraction from the river has been reviewed. The major changes in this water sharing plan is they've changed the cease to pump for the Bellinger from Thora to Foster's Gauge, which will affect the town water supply. The figures on our water restriction levels are probably beneficial to council rather than being at Thora, but they didn't include level 1, what the 90th percentile was in there. So I've made a submission to the state government asking to clarify what the 90th percentile is, because that's what our level 1 water trigger. They've also, they made a mistake in their water allocation. They had 1,300 megalitres a year, and our water allocation is 1,613 megalitres a year. And they also put in a point there that our cease to pump rules, because we don't have a cease to pump limit at the moment, but there was a clause in there that said after Belgian Council significantly augments their water supply, the Minister will review that clause. I mean, we have no plans to significantly augment at the moment, but maybe coming out of our options study, there may be something in there, and that will trigger a review of the water sharing plan again, probably the next round.
And if I can add to what Craig has said, it appears there's this review that's going on, but there is also a federal review. Infrastructure Australia is having a look at right across the water supply, cities and towns across the country are having a look at this. So I suspect there's a link, but we will put a report back to the next meeting of council in relation to this, so that we make the formal.
Yeah, I mean, it's a concerning thing, I suppose, when we're, what we've just been through, which we would never have expected to happen, and most of the state is still in the grips of a really, really tough drought. And what we're seeing with water sharing plans throughout the state, I would say, have been a failure. Where we're getting allocations to places upstream of other places. I have a real concern that the allocation that they will give us, they will allocate to, for example, intensive plant agriculture, because we've seen the blueberry industry just north of us really stepping up their requirements for water. I'm concerned that if they do a higher allocation for that here, that will be an incentive for us to get more of those sort of industries in there, and it doesn't account for the variation that we're having. So I'm sort of wondering about the implications for us. And when I looked at that, I thought, wow, that sounds like a really important issue that I'm not over. On top of that, has a big concern for our town, because if we think about one of the most crucial things for this area is having domestic water supply, and to go down the line of a desal plan, to actually be in that situation where we're talking about that, was a scary part for everyone in this shire. And I also acknowledge that we are doing this further water study, which would be fantastic, give us a better understanding of what we've got, what our potential is. But I'm sort of wondering if is there potential for us after this water sharing plan discussion? When does that actually get put up to Parliament? Or is it just departmental?
It's just departmental. It's got to be signed off by the minister.
Okay. And is there potential for us to change that along the way, or is that set in stone? This is what the allocation is. You said 8 years we had one. How long is this one going to last for? And is there any scope for us to be going, well, actually things haven't turned around. We're still struggling with water, but you've allocated, this large part of our water supply to irrigation that maybe we can't carry. So there are the concerns that I have, but I mean, obviously we're going to get a further report back.
Yeah, well, through you, Mr. Mayor, the allocations that I looked at, I mean, I didn't go through all in detail or what irrigators and the other users have got, but there didn't appear to be any increases, and there is a lot of spare allocation within the catchment without impacting environmental flows.
Okay. So we'll get a clearer picture of that. So I've got Councillor Jenkins and I've got Councillor Fenton and then Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just if I can get clarification, you made reference to the comment from the Minister's office about augmentation of water and that we don't have any plans to do that at the moment. What would be the benefit or otherwise of us in this situation if we were to have plans to augment?
In terms of the water sharing plan, it would depend on what augmentation we did. It was only like desal, it's going to substitute some water supply due to lack of water. I don't think it could affect our trigger points. I think the only major augmentation that would give us a cease to pump would be like off-stream storage.
So what I mean is in the context of the letter that came from the Minister, and that he would review something if we had plans to augment. So might there be some benefit if we did have some sort of plan to augment?
I think it's important to remember in this discussion at this point, Mr. Mayor, that the council is doing and got funding last year to do an options report. And the objective of the options report is to look at the additional water options that council can consider in terms of supplying town water. And that is going to answer these questions in terms of what additional water options that the council should consider in this year. I think that is going to answer the question. And we will say that as part of the submission we make that to Ms. Cody, that she knows full well we're doing this report because she announced it, the funding. So it's that work is also going to feed into some other work that is substantially complete by awaiting this option report in terms of the total integrated water cycle management plan, which defines how we manage your water across the shire.
And so that
will come back to council too.
And so that, through you, Mr. Mayor, that work that you just referred to, that will then trigger the review that has been mentioned in relation to
that will be input into that review.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, it's just like a note. It says if we have serious augmentation, this clause will be reviewed. It doesn't say we have to augment the system. It just says if we do a serious augmentation, the minister will review this clause.
Okay, so sorry, just for my benefit, what does that then mean? That what does it mean for us, that review?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess if we do serious and major augmentation work of the water, the minister will then review what we've done again, and then they can modify that clause.
And there would be a benefit for the shire?
I can't see any benefit for us through it, but it may be a benefit, environmental benefit.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the issue is it's a bit of a moving piece at the moment, not just for us, but I think the council, certainly across New South Wales, who've been faced with different challenges in terms of water. The options report and the development of the integrated water cycle management plan for us was not in response to where we got to in terms of the drought last year and the flows of it. They were bodies of work that were substantially underway, and or in terms of the options report, we had still funded I think at the beginning of last year or thereabouts, in order to actually develop the options so that we could have an integrated water cycle management plan that contemplated the circumstances that will continue to find ourselves in. The water sharing plans that the Department of Water is reviewing at the moment, again, they will be organic things. As Craig referred to, it's a long time since they were reviewed, and in that sense, it's good they're being reviewed. But, you know, as the Water Authority, if we then make some changes, that will mean we will need to tell the relevant department so that they can have another look at whatever the water sharing plan is, and to see if what we are doing or what we have done should change that. So I think that is the sequence of events that will happen. But I also think that the government, the New South Wales government certainly is taking a broad brush look at the way water is managed across the state. And we will watch that very closely because of the importance of water provision to our community, and because of the importance of being able to manage water locally.
So I've got a question from Councillor Fenton and Councillor Manning and Councillor Robson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I actually worked on water sharing plans in there 2 versions ago, and at that time that process was incredibly consultative in the community, including, you know, committees that met monthly over several years to understand all the issues of it around the setting of those numbers and how all that water interacted together. That process has been taken higher and higher up for some very obvious reasons. So my question is around, I don't feel that those public information sessions will be at the level that we who have that broader catchment picture and responsibility as councillors will be pitched at us. As major stakeholders are DPIE, and they are now, aren't they, planning a consultation with us directly?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the water sharing plan was emailed me directly to review, and I made a response. The sessions, the consultation on the 13th and 14th, I think, of March, or 14th, 15th.
Yeah.
And it's not actually a group meeting. I think it's just you drop in and have a chat.
Yeah.
Because it goes over 2 days. So same with any farmer, irrigator, whoever just wants some information, drops in.
Yeah. I think my point is that that approach is that's individuals with licences wondering how it impacts them. That approach has taken away a catchment view of our water supply, and I feel like that's something that we should have an opportunity to have fully explained to us and to interact with the department in that regard. Can we request that?
Yeah, I'm just talking to the General Manager. That you know, and I think we had the same issue around forestry, that we weren't in the consultation. So I think it's really important that the state government starts to recognise that local government should be spoken to when there's changes or something that's so integral in our, you know, what we do for our community. So I think that's a really good point, Councillor Fenton, and we will send a message to the Minister asking.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the councillors who moved and seconded the recommendation, Councillors Fenton and Harrison, might be happy to include the second piece which says that council requested a briefing regarding the water sharing plans as a matter of urgency. And we'll contact the office and arrange for them to come in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good point.
Could you please do that again, General Manager? Councillor requested briefing.
Briefing regarding the water sharing plans as a matter of urgency. And council, the reason it is important, given the issue that our request carries the council resolution.
Okay, we've got that. Okay, so we still have one question from Councillor Wright Turner, and then we'll move into the motion.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm not sure if this is the right place for the question. It is about water, but I don't know if this is the place for it. It's the prolonged turbidity of our rivers, and I know we've had events that, you know, create that. Are we, you know, do we have any monitoring of that? And where we have significant roadworks having to occur in a time like this, which I know was necessary on Boggy Creek Road because it just washed out, it's been very well repaired. Do we have just routine procedures that will put the kind of silt catching things? Now, I don't know if it's your question or where it should go. I'm happy to hold it over to another report if that's more. But it's really wanting to know, what are we doing about that? Are we really aware? Because and I don't have generations of knowledge of the river, but it has been a long period of turbidity, the longest I've experienced. And I know it's particular conditions, but it is a concern for the, you know, health of the river.
Through you, Mr Mayor, in terms of like the water treatment, we test turbidity every day. And the water that comes through the Bellington treatment plant through the gravel beds, it's turbidity. Even when the river's brown, it comes through turbidity so low it's almost can't measure it. In Dorrigo, when the turbidity gets up, we don't pump. We've got storage dams there, and they can tide us over a few days. But then we add chemicals and flocculate out the sediment, and it goes through sand filtration, so the turbidity there is not an issue as well.
So if I understand it's been really well managed for the consumption of the water. You know, that's you know, that's clear, which is where I wonder if my question's in the right place. How well can we manage, monitor, do the things that, you know, are within our power to look at the turbidity for the health of the river and the, you know, aquatic life and etc. So
through you, Mr Mayor, in terms of roadworks, and I'm sure John will be able to back up this, we have environmental management plans in place, and we have to have silt and sedimentation controls in place before the work can start.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a further question on that? Because I think it's really important. I think maybe the acting deputy general manager of operations, it's in your zone as well, because I think, and it does relate to water, because water is obviously one of the things is domestic water use, but the rest of it is also implications for our environment, and you know, the health of our people that use the river regularly. I think I've picked up the same thing that Councillor Wright Turner has picked up with the Kalang. It took a long time to clean up, and my thought was there was a lot of roadworks and a lot of fire trail work that had to be done around the fires and all that sort of stuff. So there was a you know, a really, and it had been a long time since we had a lot of rain. So obviously that was going to impact the Bellinger. The Bellinger's still running dirty, but I know we've had a couple of different events. Is there sediment traps that have been done when those roadworks happen? Is that part of what people have to do? And I know there was a panic around the fires, and I understand that, you know, the job was to try and do some clearing. You know, is it an obligation for people to come back and actually put those sediment traps in after they've done those works? If it's private contractors, I imagine our staff would be doing that. And if not, or if it is, how do we ever monitor that people are actually doing the right thing in the upper catchment? And what are the, you know, the long-term impacts on our rivers of those events? Because, you know, I know the Kalang, and I've only been there 15 years, but it hadn't cleared up after 10 days. And, we're seeing the same development. So there is a concern that this is something we haven't seen as well, something that probably we wouldn't have thought was going to be something that is part of this, this changing weather.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, when we are performing works and during construction, we follow best practice stormwater management and runoff guidelines.
Yeah.
Those are Blue Book regulations. On us best practice erosion and sediment control, which is during the construction process. What we follow as well is obviously design requirements, but the intention is when we leave a piece of work, that piece of work is now best set to have adequate drainage, adequate runoff, to mitigate against any potential sediment loss. And that's how we design the work that we do. And in terms of your question around the monitoring and compliance, outside of and beyond of the LGA, that's not something from a works perspective that we have or are able to have as a platform.
So there's no real checks done. So I mean, capacity obviously for us to do it's probably not there. And I imagine the state government, should have people checking that possibly, but whether that'll be an EPA.
I would suggest that is how it happens at this stage, and it's more of a reactive sort of thing. If something is reported, the EPA get involved. In terms of monitoring compliance, it's not really much in that space.
Okay, final question.
Yeah, just it's an expansion of that, and it's maybe more a comment because the fire trail works, say up through the area of Scotchman's, which would be shedding both ways into the Kalang. There was a lot of work done there, which I saw some of the preliminary work, and it had no sediment control at all. So you're right, it's potentially something that should have been a report and is potentially impacting both rivers.
Okay, so we've got a mover and a second. Thanks, Craig. So Councillor Fenton, did you?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there any opposition? If not, I'll put it all those in favour. Item 12.4, which is Sustainable Environment and Waste Quarterly Report. And we do have Alex Waldron here, the Manager of Sustainable Environment and Waste. If there is any questions, but I'll go for a mover and second first. Councillor Wright Turner and Councillor Tyler. And is there any questions? Did you want to come up, Alex, possibly? I've just got one. The question around Dalhousie Creek, stages 1 and 2. Stage 1 is it planting and fencing, and is that right?
Mr. Mayor, they are two totally separate projects. So the Dalhousie Creek 1, I've had to name it 1 and 2 because it became confusing, and they had similar project names. And this one was relating to fencing and
is
planting.
that coastal or is that further up?
It's coastal.
Okay.
Yeah, so this one was gained when we originally did the coastal zone management plan. Do you remember the older plan that we did? So it is quite an old grant, this one. It's from 2018-19. It was a 2-year programme that has obviously had extensions to it due to staffing issues. So, and then the second one is the more recent one that you're on. It's the beach stuff. Yeah, the beach scrape one is probably the easiest way. Yeah.
So I've got a question about that because I was down there 2 weeks ago, and that the Dalhousie Creek has done what it's done in the past, which is head north and cut off the access for the Surf Life Saving Club to put out their flags. Is that still the case? Is that do you know if that have you heard from the Hungry Head Surf Life Saving Club whether that's an issue for them again?
Mr. Mayor, we haven't heard from them again, and the last time that the officer went out prior to her departing council, she had found that it started to build up again, which is actually really encouraging. So, which is why we're hoping that we may be able to scale back the work to actually build up the notch and the sand dune So it would appear
I
to
noted that, but then I went down myself 2
Yep.
weeks ago. And it was heading north.
have started again.
So it started off going south, and now it's certainly cut them off, but I haven't been back to have another look. But I was just wondering whether we knew about that. And also, this is for an initial scrape. That's right. And there was some discussion about it being ongoing, and we hadn't sorted that funding yet. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Is there any further questions? Councillor Fenton?
Through you, Mr Mayor. The trial of bulky goods vouchers in Dorrigo, can I ask, so that trial cost $5,000. Can I ask, is that a good result, or is that an unsustainable result, or what? Can you talk a little bit more about that, or are we hearing more about that later?
Through you, Mr Mayor. No, I'll talk about that now, it's probably appropriate. 21 vouchers at the cost of just over $5,000, it is not necessarily a great result. The main issue with this is actually that we've made the decision to accept the grant and actually close the landfill portion and turn it into a transfer station, which means that even though this was a trial by placing the bulky goods into landfill, it will change into the future. So we'd probably need to do a further assessment on how viable it is into the future, because there'll be extra haulage costs, because there'll be no landfill to place it into. And as you can imagine, bulky items are exactly that, bulky. So it takes 1 or 2 sofas and you've got a large bulk bin essentially full. So my concern is haulage costs in relation to that. So it was good for a trial, but the uptake was fairly low actually at 21.
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. I'm also interested in the coastal management program, to jump around a bit. So the committee, just to briefly update other councillors, the committee is up to where they've had consultants looking at the coastal processes, I guess, and then that's going to come to us soon, presumably. There was a couple of things. One's a bit complex, which will have to come and be talked about as part of that, but there's riverbank repair that has seemed to be quite urgent, identified by the community and the scientific community, that hasn't happened by the state government. Is that, is there some reason that that hasn't happened? Because it sounds like it's quite crucial and has been for a while. And what can we do about it, I guess, is the question.
Where was that?
At Milestone. Sorry, just thinking ahead.
Is that a question for Alex?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think that's a question that could be directed to the actual deputy chair.
Through Mr Mayor, could you just clarify specifically which section of
The section that hasn't been done along the township on the river.
this, the revetment and retaining walls?
Yeah, it's failing old works is my understanding. There's existing works there, or it's combined with failing old works.
Through you, Mr Mayor, so lots of quality work between, there's a shared responsibility of the land there. Crown are responsible for anything below the mean high water level. And so currently the Belmont Estate Park Trust is responsible for the land above that mean high water level, which is being reviewed at the minute, you're probably aware. Some of those revetment works have been undertaken over the last few years, and there is plans in place to look at further revetment works of the areas that are failing. And it's just a case of scoping, designing, and looking for funding for those works. There's a significant body of work
For
to
us?
replace those walls.
For us to do that scoping the funding, or
It will be a joint between Crown and between ourselves.
okay.
Through you, Mr Mayor, it is an issue that came up in and around the discussion of the Milestone pathway. We did discuss with it now actually the importance of the work, and what we heard from the community in terms of the importance of the work. But there is a scope of work that's being developed, at least part of it. And the Crown is able to access some funds for part of it, and then look for some funds for the other part of it.
So the coastal management plan, that state government matching funding, and once we've got that plan signed off, is our best bet, or there's other options as well.
understand there's, through you, Mr. Mayor, I understand there's a few options for funding and we'll explore them.
Okay,
So,
all right, thank you.
No further questions? Okay, so councillor White-Jones, would you need to speak to that?
No, I think we've covered it well, thank you.
Yeah, is there any opposition? I'll put it all those in favour. And it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Item 13.1, which is council policy bribes, gifts and benefits. It's, would you want to speak to that?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the report's pretty clear. The new code of conduct that council's already adopted actually incorporates all of the policies around, or at least trumps the policy around the receipt of gifts, bribes and benefits. So our policy is therefore subject to this resolution calls for it to be rescinded as it is already in the code of conduct.
Okay, so I'm looking for a mover. Councillor White-Jones, seconder. Councillor Barto. Councillor White-Jones. This is not, no, put it all those in favour. Item 13.2, which is property leases 7/15 Bondwell Street, Urunga, on my.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the shops at Urunga, commonly known as the shops at Urunga. And you might recall, councillors, those of you who've been around the table for a while, that from time to time, every time a tenant leaves, we need to bring that new tenant to you to formally adopt. This resolution just allows us to use the current leasing policy that council's already adopted and to turn tenants over. We have that managed by a real estate agent. So to turn tenants over as the leases expire or they vacate without having to bring individual reports with tenant names to council. And it's in line with the current leasing policy that council's already adopted.
No questions on that? Okay, so looking for
I've got a question if it's okay, Miss. Yeah. In that, the outlay map of the set of shops, is it right to say that the biggest shop on the right, looking at it, is the corner shop where the art museum is?
I may have to take that on notice because I just have to put it on the map.
I think
Yes, I think it is.
correct.
It is. So the biggest one there is for the art museum. Okay.
If you look at that map, it shows the corner of two streets, Bondwell Street and Pinner Street, and that is on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify that, if a lease is being let on one of those shops that isn't in line with this resolution, then it will come to council. So for example, Art Space, or Art Space previously, when we actually rebated their rent for a number of years, that would come to council because it's not in line with the leasing policy. It's a departure from that, so we would bring it to you for a special resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we would with any other shop there that was going to be leased, not at the commercial rates.
Just another question, sorry, Mr. Mayor. On this map, there's a set of public toilets. Is that quite accessible for everyone to use, or that's only for the lessees of the shop? I didn't know about the public toilets there at all.
I think through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think they're public. I think they're for the lessees to use.
Yeah. So the word public toilet should be,
Should be, yeah.
yeah.
Should be, well, yeah, tenants toilets.
But that'll be, yeah, at the back of the laneway there somewhere.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that map.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm looking for a mover.
That's all right.
Councillor Carter. Seconder, Councillor Harrison. There is no opposition, I will put it. All those in favour? Item 13.3, the planning progress report. We do have Luke here, the other acting deputy general manager. If there is any questions around that. It's great to have these reports. I think it's really, really helpful to see all that stuff laid out. So
It's good.
a very easy process for us to get a better grip on what's going on. So I'm looking for a mover if there's no questions. Councillor Harrison, second Councillor Benson. If there is no opposition, I will put it. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Construction services progress report. Once again, I'll look for a mover and seconder, and then I'll go to questions. Mover, Councillor Benson, seconder. Councillor Wright Turner. I had a couple of questions. Page 115. Just looking at that, the budget for road renewals, seal road renewals, as we are nearly at the end of Feb and we haven't used half of that allocation, so I was just interested in knowing if we've had, had the fires and now the current rains, is that something that's putting us behind in terms of our projects and resealing and grading and all those sort of things?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. It's been a very large drain on the workforce and definitely a large disruption thing. Having to reallocate those resources that were allocated to these road renewals. Having to tackle with 2 fires and a flood event.
So how far do you reckon we're behind the process? Or that, where we're going to get to? Obviously, that money will stay. It's just that it's going to move everything back, isn't it? Is that a guesstimate about where we'd be? Not in terms of deadline.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is about current now, just referring to the notes. We've nominated which projects we believe we will have to defer until the next financial year. When we run through those projects are the Valerie Road rehabilitation, the Deerville Road rehabilitation, the Morgo Street Uranga rehabilitation, and Woodbury Lane in Bellingen as well. Should be noted as well, there's been some significant design issues with Keeper's Drive, the old highway application is in a pretty nasty state of repair. So that one's got a bit of a question mark around it, which I'll update in next month's report. But we still anticipate we'll deliver the rest of the project.
So that was worse than what you thought, or that was
Absolutely, yes.
Was that after the floods, or that was before the floods?
This is regardless of the floods, it's just the pavement condition. Once we did our pavement investigations, there was a lot of substandard sub-bases and the road makeup itself.
Councillor Jenkins and Councillor Fenton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I might have missed it in the conversation that just took place, but will that work be finished this year or some deferred till next year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if you look at your council report on page 115 and you look at the 1, 2, 3, 4th column, 5th column, it says anticipated date, and it shows you the dates in there in the bottom 3 or 4, July, September, March the following year. It's adjusted those dates to take account of the impact of the natural disaster.
And so that funding will be quarantined and just carried over?
Carried forward, that's right.
Councillor Fenton and then Councillor Harrison.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, but at the risk of mentioning trees in Church Street, I noticed that trees that were from the original work at the northern end that were damaged outside number 5 Church Street business and Fennell Street business have not been replaced. Whereas my understanding was they were being replaced when the other street plantings were happening. Or has there been a change in that plan, or it just hasn't happened yet?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's a number of those trees that, in my time of being here, we've had some requests to assess them. We've had arborists assess those and make some recommendations because of danger of for some of those trees. So we've done some pruning in that regard. Referring back to the original plan, that was something for my time in RT to investigate.
It was, no, I'm referring to on the western side, the actual street plantings that were done in the footpath at that time. Both of those trees, I think, are now missing.
Sure, Mr. We're not aware of the detail, but I can investigate that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question for John, I think it is. When is the expected completion date of the Deep Creek Bridge?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Deep Creek Bridge is expected to be completed within, intention is weather permitting, this financial year.
I've just got one final question, which is Crystal Falls. Why, is that a road, Crystal Falls? I only ever saw it in the National Park, so it's just a bit.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Crystal Falls is it's a segment of Waterfall Way that we refer to as Crystal Falls.
And so they're talking about widening that. Okay, so I've got a mover and seconder. Have I? No, I haven't. Go ahead. So if there is no opposition, I will put it. All those in favour? Item 13.5, maintenance service progress report. And I'll remove and second, and then I'll go to questions. You want to move? Councillor Carter? And Councillor Wright Turner. And any questions, if there is any? Councillor Benson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just noting that we've had a little bit of rain lately, how does the grading, the maintenance grading on dirt sealed roads, how and why does it happen when there's huge rainfalls coming, and what can we do about that, or is it unavoidable that there's just a mess for a while?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with the resources and budget that we have allocated, there is definitely going to be a measure of a mess for a period, especially when you have a rainfall event that's intense across the entire LGA path. Coupled with the fact that you've got other reallocations of resources that we've mentioned already, because you're dealing with flood damage and so on and so forth. All we can do is prioritise, get out there and examine our network, assess the network as quickly as possible, and then we prioritise from there.
Thank you.
Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to the staff on their quick actions. We had a couple of sinkholes develop on our road. We received 208 millimetres of rain in just over an hour, and these sinkholes appeared and they were fixed or made passable in a day. And I think that's an outstanding effort from all the crews involved, so thank you.
Councillor Carter?
That's really yes, Brad. With all the rain that we had, I know I keep harping on Hillside Drive. There's an access driveway that we took off the budgeting and took it out of the program, and it's since partially collapsed. But that's happened in February, so that'll come into March report. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, yes, that will be in the March report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to move and seconder. If there is no opposition, I'll put it. All those in favour? Item 13.6, the grants and funding report, January to December, and we do have Maxine here. So I might get a mover and seconder, and then I'll give out questions. Looking for a mover. Councillor Carter, seconded Councillor Benson. And is there any questions for everyone's happy?
Beautiful.
Yeah, look, I just want to know, Maxine, that, yeah, once again, thank you for the work that you do. There's a massive amount of work that one person has to carry largely on their own, and I think, it speaks volumes to the amount of work you do that we get so many grants. So thank you so much for all that stuff. It was great to read through all that, that widespread of grants that we get right across the Shire, and it's really pleasing to see that stuff. If there is no opposition, I've got to move in seconder. I'm going to put it. All those in favour?
Thank you.
Might do one more before I get a cup of tea. Item 13.7 is the report on investments as of 31st of January. We do have Chris here. I'll look for a mover first. Councillor Turner, seconded Councillor Jenkins. Is there any questions for Chris? Okay, if there's no opposition, I will put it. All those in favour? I'm assuming you're in favour, Councillor Jenkins?
Yes.
Okay, so that's unanimous. I might quickly break for a cup of tea. We'll do Chris and then we'll stop. I thought he might want to have a cup of tea with us. His boss is around, his boss is around. Okay, so we've got the quarterly budget review statement. I'm looking for a mover. Mr. Harrison, seconder. Mr. Jenkins. Is there any questions? I have one, Chris. I noticed, that we've had an improvement, and that's been largely brought around by the 786,000 that we got from the sale of which is nice to see. I'm just sort of unsure about whether that just goes straight into general revenue, or is there an option for us to get uses for that money around some of the projects that we've got. And I understand the need to try and balance books, but I also understand before we had this money that we had a long conversation about why those things happen, and it certainly is a moving sort of beast in terms of where we go in terms of deficit. Because it seems like a really good opportunity for us to look at using some of that money for a wide variety of different projects. And I was wondering whether there's going to be some councillor input into that. That might not be a question exactly for you, but
yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I might answer the first part of the question. So in terms of, when you get a windfall like this, what I'd like to see is that it improves our operating cash flow. As you can see later in the report, our unrestricted current ratio, which is basically an indicator of our unrestricted cash, indicates we've got a ratio of 1.5. And you may or may not recall when we finished the financial statements last year, the auditors presented to council. They talked specifically about that ratio, and once that ratio goes below 1.5, they don't really like it.
Yeah.
It's not a great indicator in terms of your overall cash flow. Certainly not cause for alarm.
On that, Chris,
yeah.
Just to make sure I've got it right. So
sure.
that means that's money that's not allocated to sewer or roads or whatever.
Correct.
That's the pool of money that we have, and that's a measure that we have by the auditors in terms of where we are and the risk to council of not being able to have some extra money in case something happens, that we've got that money to cover that.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
So exactly right. So in terms of for every debt we have in the short term, we've got $1.50 for every dollar we've got to pay out. So it's a good position to be in.
Yeah.
But what I like is to see that an improvement upon that. In terms of restricting money for future use, that's a decision for council. So I don't know if Liz wants to add to that.
I'll answer that, but
Thank you.
Is that a separate question, Councillor Jenkins?
I was going to ask a question.
Is it a separate one than one I asked?
Yeah.
Okay, well then you want to answer that one?
Oh,
through
And then I'll come back to my
through you, Ms. Mayor, noting all of what Chris has said, and there is an requirement in the way we account, it had to be brought, the funds had to be brought in this way. That said, as we come towards the end of the financial year, because this will be an interesting financial year to see how everything washes up, to be honest, considering there's money coming from all sorts of directions in terms of disaster and recovery funding and emergency declarations. As we come closer to the end of the financial year, we will have a look at those other priority projects that we know are important to the council and have a discussion with you about that and about how we may or may not access some of those funds and the implications of that. So we can bring that to account in the final stages of our budgeting process for this year.
Councillor Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was just wondering, would that money somehow contribute to averting future possible rate rises?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Currently in the long-term financial plan, we haven't forecast any additional rate rises other than what was already applied for and approved by IPART. So we certainly haven't, but yeah, certainly any increase in cash flow will assist the financial position, which will reduce the need for further rate rises.
Yeah. Is there any further questions? So if there is no opposition, I will put it. All those in favour? Thank you, Chris. And we will break at 10:34 for 20 minutes.
Oh, really?
Okay, so we are.
I see his photograph in the paper at some stage, standing there with Linda Pavey and.
Because I was, yeah, she rang me and I was in London, she said, I'm moving up to Dorrigo today, so
Okay, councillors.
So
We're up to item 13.9, which is Building and Regulation Progress Report. And I'm looking for a mover. Councillor Harrison, seconder. Councillor Jenkins. Is there any questions around this item? No? Okay, I will put it. You've got a question?
Oh, it's probably, no, it's okay.
All right, okay, I will put it. All those in favour? Okay, item 13.10 is the Customer Business Services 6-monthly progress report, and we do have Nicole Merchant, the Manager of Customer Business Services, with us. If there is any questions, I might get a mover first. In the second, I'll move Councillor Benton, second to Councillor Harrison, and I will open up the questions. If there isn't, I might ask one of you, Nicole. I'm just sort of wondering how you're finding the new IT stuff. Is that implemented yet? Has that sort of been through its?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so we've implemented the start of our IT project. So we've basically got our records keeping management services is in place, and we've progressed to our finance module, which incorporates our general ledger, our payroll, online leave, what else have we got? Our rates and property and water as well.
Yep.
So that's all gone across quite smoothly, and we're progressing now through the rest of the project plan. So the other things we're looking at now, which I'm actually really excited about, is our customer service request management process, getting that automated. It's quite a manual process at the moment. So as I said, I'm very excited about that, about seeing that implementing. It also will provide some efficiencies. There's a lot of back end work that's required to go along with that in mapping out our services and our timeframes as well. But what we're intending is that it'll have greater transparency to the external community. So they'll be actually able to go onto our portal or our website and actually see what's happening in regards to their service requests that they may lodge. We've also got our asset management system. We're starting to do some work on that as well. And what we would probably call our smaller register type modules as well. So our cemeteries, our bookings, our inspections, so primarily around building and regulation, those sort of things. So we've started our journey. We've still got a long way to go, but it's quite positive. And being able to have as part of that project, our infrastructure project as well. So, you know, our internet speeds, we're on NBN now. So that connectivity and being able to connect our sites through as well is really of benefit to us.
Yeah, and that customer service one, I know that's, you know, we've obviously done really, really well in the past with a very archaic sort of system. And so that's going to be really, really great for us to be able to answer. You know, people who've said I've run or you know, I've been in there 3 times, but we can actually go, well, you have or you haven't. And so I think that's a great step for us, so I'm really looking forward to that as well. Okay, one second though, I wanted to also, there was, and it might be a question for Luke as well about the planning, the implications for planning and being able to see the DAs, because I know that that's something that other councils are talking about, whether that's an add-on to that IT system where you can go on and see what DAs have been approved or are waiting to be approved in your area.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, so part of the suite of software that we're implementing is a program called Greenlight, which will do just that, probably a little bit more. So the intent will be that at any time and a person anywhere will be able to log on to the internet and log on to our website essentially and be able to view any development application lodged for commencement and see whether it will sit there as a catalogue, but also importantly any that are on notification or anything that's near or surrounds their property and get information that relates to whether it's plans or information that describes the application and importantly be able to make a submission online as well.
Through you, Mr. It has been an interesting journey in terms of our IT system replacement, which in the end was software and hardware, and also the connectivity for our organisation. And it's and considering the extent of change, it's been managed really well. So congratulations to Nicole and also to Laurie, who's the project manager. Of interest though is that IT Vision, who is the software provider, are very interested to work with the council to develop a range of modules because this is what it seems they do. They continuously build and improve, and they're interested in building their New South Wales business. This not work primarily a West Australian company, although they did have some councils in New South Wales. They're really quite a large provider, but they're not so large that they're not nimble. So they've talked to Nicole and I about where they see that they can develop some particular expertise. They are investing heavily in New South Wales. They're going to focus that around the work they do with us in Kempsey, because if you recall, Kempsey and Bellingen went down this path together. So I think that will bear a lot of fruit and work really well for us. They are encouraging us to work with a council called Teacher Allen, South Australia, in terms of particularly the customer service process module, because apparently they've done really good work and they see a really good match for it. And of course they would, because I used to work for Teacher Allen Council. How is that 2 degrees separation? So anyway, that aside, I think that will be a really good opportunity for the council and the whole state. So.
Is there any other questions, councillors? Okay, I have a mover and a seconder. If there is no opposition, I will put it. All those in favour? That's unanimous. And we have no confidential matters, so that concludes the meeting at 11:02. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.